Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another interview on the Southern Cross Combat YouTube channel. I am your host, Joel Rasmussen, and today, ahead of Jack Della Madalena's world title fight in the UFC, I'm talking to the head man out of Scrappy MMA. I'm talking to Mr. Ben Vickers. He is Jack Della Madalena's head coach. He is a fantastic mind in the game. And it was an absolute pleasure to speak to him ahead of the fight. Literally, he was packing his bags to fly out. He flies out tomorrow, as of the date of recording this, to Canada to corner Jack, along with names like Craig Jones, to hopefully bring another UFC title back to Australian shores. We talk about the upcoming fight. We talk about I think this fight is I think it's underrated. B, I think Jack's underrated. And C, I think it's a bit of a low key. There is like a little bit of heat here, you know. Jack has, as we talk about it in this interview, but Jack Della has, I think the quote was, he doesn't talk shit, but he speaks truth. He has been letting his opinions be known about Belal. A lot of people in the welterweight division have been letting their opinions be known about this fight. I talked to Ben about that. He talks about Ben's thoughts on the fight itself, his thoughts on Belal Muhammad, his thoughts on Ian Garry, as well as at the end, it's mainly about Jack Della, but at the end we also touch on Jack Becker getting his shot on the road to UFC. I say it in the interview, but in reality, I could spend all day talking to Ben, and hopefully sometime soon I will. But it was great. I think it was a great interview. Great first interview to do with someone. Ben was very giving with his time. I really do appreciate it, Ben Vickers. And I hope to do more of these with Ben. There's a lot to talk about. We just talk for like 40 minutes just on Jack, when there's a plethora of talent coming out of Scrappy MMA and fitness that we could talk about, which I hope we will in the future. But nonetheless, if you enjoy this, please like, subscribe, share it, all that good stuff. I always tell myself I'm not going to use the phrase all this good stuff, and then I use it, and I just feel bad. But nonetheless, I digress. Here is my interview with Ben Vickers. G'day, it's Joel Rasmussen from Southern Cross Combat, and ahead of UFC 315, I'm talking to Mr. Ben Vickers. Ben, I thank you very much for the time. How are we this morning, Coach?
Yeah, really good, mate. Just dealing with the madness of school run and all that kind of stuff. But it's nice to sneak out and speak MMA instead of getting kids dressed and herding cats.
I very much appreciate the time, and of course, talking about the herding of the cats, and that this is a huge fight coming up for Jack, but life does carry on. The kids still need to get to school and all those things. What are your emotions like right now? We are not too far out from the fight. How are the emotions?
Yeah, honestly, like it's all pretty surreal. Obviously, as a kid, sort of when I got into the sport 20 plus years ago into MMA, combat sports a decade before that, like these were lofty dreams, right? These were just the stuff of stories and you know, they say if you shoot for the moon, sometimes you land on a star. And I feel like we're on the way to the moon, and it hasn't really hit me until now, really, because I'll show you. I've started packing my suitcase. Like it's actually really started to hit home that we're going over to Canada to do this thing, and it's exciting. I can't wait to get over there and just be able to immerse myself in just the fight. Obviously, wearing so many hats, sometimes it spoils the ability to immerse yourself in one thing completely. But that's the great thing about when we arrive in country for the fight, is like that's all that matters. You know, if you want to message me or about fights for a turn or anything like that, I'm probably not going to answer you until the 11th or 12th of May, depending on where you are in the world. So yeah, it's really starting to get real now, and I'm dead excited. Can't wait.
You talk about that. It has come, and it's been a kind of a weird path to hear. Jack obviously was booked for Edwards, and then he gets the call. So from your perspective, how did this come to be? How did we get here?
Just right place, right time, and having a body of work behind you that means you're appropriate to fight for a title. You know, that getting that win and getting up and kneeing Gilbert in the face and finishing him was meant that Jack got to sit out in a very good position. You know, and Jack's an exceptional guy, and the fact that he was able to show that if you want to beat him, you're going to have to do something remarkably spectacular because he's going to find a way to win. And the fact that we sit here with, Jack having won that fight, even though it was 2 rounds down with a couple of minutes left, although I don't necessarily agree with the scoring, we knew that Jack was down in that fight, and the fact that he was able to change his mindset with one arm and go out there with a completely different energy, which you can see if you watch the fight back, separates Jack from everybody else. So that's why we're here. The UFC obviously see it. Jack's a guy that my complaint recently of the UFC welterweight division is none of them want to risk it for the biscuit. Ian Garry wants to go on about how good his loss against Shavkat was. It's embarrassing to me and Jack. If you're a winner and a champion, you don't celebrate losses, no matter how close you think you might have been. If you're that close to winning a fight, you should take a risk to finish it. The same as Prates on the weekend and Garry. Prates threw 30 significant strikes across three rounds. No one's out there trying to get it, and that's what you're going to see with Jack. And that's what you see with Belal, to be fair. It's not very exciting, but he's getting after it. He's putting pressure in it, and he's going for the win. I feel like some of these boys are just happy to see the bell.
Where were you when you got the call that you would be fighting for the title?
It's a weird one because we kind of got a nudge a little bit early. It must have been around Christmas time. I can't remember exactly when, to be honest, because so much happens. But we were preparing for Leon anyway, and then the buzz came through that we might be getting pushed into a different fight, and just to hold out. And about a week after we were told we might be, we were given the nod. I think it was around about Sydney, UFC Sydney, that Jack got the actual nod that we were getting the fight, and then we had to sit on it pretty tightly. We were told that if it got out, someone else would get a shot. So it was hard news to sit on, but we sat on it for about a week, and then we were sort of told it was all clear to announce, and here we are.
Is this how you would have liked it to happen? Obviously, a student of yours fighting for a title is every coach's dream, but it's a year out coming off an injury. Is this how you would have liked it to happen?
I don't think it matters how it happens. Like, it's an opportunity that not many people get to have. So I don't think it's never going to be a perfect scenario. This sport is so hard to prepare properly for a fight that it's never going to be ideal. It's never going to be 100%. We just roll with it. And Jack's the consummate pro. Yeah, he's had a year off, but if you think he's not been in the gym every single day, even with one arm, I mean, there's videos on YouTube of what he was like what he was doing with one arm. So he's been fit for since 6 or 8 weeks after the injury. He was training, running around, moving around the gym. So I don't feel like the layoff's going to be a problem. It's not like Belal's a very active fighter either. Jack's probably had more fights than him in the last 3 years. So if you want to do it like that, you could swing it that way. But Jack's just a guy who performs. He knows when the cage door closes and the lights are on, he needs to perform. And that's where a lot of good fighters don't. They're great in the gym and they train all year round, and they might not put their best foot forward on fight night. But in this sport, 3 times a year or whatever, however many opportunities you get, you've really got to show that you've really got no choice but to perform on those 3 nights of the year. And Jack's good at that.
We talked a bit before you brought up the opponent, Belal Muhammad. You kind of gave a little bit of your thoughts on him, but what do you make of Belal Muhammad?
He reminds me of Mitch Martin in that you'd watch Mitch on telly and you'd think, oh, I'll beat him, no dramas, and then you fight Mitch and it's a completely different story, and I think Belal's a bit like that. Everyone says how rubbish he is, but you don't have a 12-fight unbeaten streak, or whatever he calls it, in the UFC without being good. He's beat some good guys. I personally debate the performances of the people he beat. He goes on about his strength of schedule, but if you look at the performances put out by the people that he fought, not just the name and the number next to it, Leon didn't turn up. Gilbert hurt his shoulder in the first round, and Belal still couldn't stop him in 5. And Brady shit himself on the plane. So, you know, I don't put too much stock in his recent victories, but we don't underestimate him, and he's a great wrestler. He's talking about wanting to stand with Jack. That'd be Christmas. Hope he does that. But we think he's going to be sniffing crotches from minute one. We're prepared for that. People are mad enough to think Jack can't wrestle. Maybe Jack couldn't be bothered to wrestle in his first few fights. He just thought it was easier to get up off the ground because his jiu-jitsu is so good. And watching him roll with Craig Jones, that's just been sort of solidified in my mind that Jack's one of the best jiu-jitsu guys in the welterweight division, without a shadow of a doubt. He proved that against Gilbert as well. So I think Belal's got his hands full, and I think at 36 he might think he's fit, but Jack's 28 in his prime, and fit. You know, his VO2 max score ranks in the top 1% in the UFC PI data. So Jack can go, he can push, he's a pressure fighter. So is Belal. So let's hope they meet in the middle. And you know,
Talking about meeting in the middle, Belal, I saw a clip of him. He gives his prediction. He lays it out like beat by beat, but the spark notes of it. He plans on outboxing Jack, making Jack wrestle, and then KOing him. What are your reactions to hearing that?
he just talks nonsense, doesn't he? He's just like, everyone knows what he's going to do. If he thinks he's going to stand, hurt Jack on the feet, he's never hurt anyone on the feet. I mean, except Brady, but like, I don't think Brady can take a shot. But you know, who's he hurt? If he said that Jack's chin is granite, you know, Gilbert hit him with a flush elbow, overhand right, clean, powerful shots from a hard puncher. I've never seen Jack wobbled in the gym in a decade, you know, or more. So good luck if that's your game plan. You know, you need to be smarter than that. But yeah, if he wants to do that and he wants to try and implement that game plan, that's just an easy path to victory for us. So, you know, if he's got a point to prove to himself, I think this is the wrong time to do it. But I really feel it's all smoke and mirrors, and we're expecting wrestling from the get-go.
How do you talk there about Belal, about he does a lot of talking, and he's a guy that maybe it's just the nature of people not paying attention to him as much as they have to other people, like other fighters in the UFC. I feel like up until he got the belt, he wasn't talking that much. At least I didn't notice it. Jack is a relatively soft-spoken guy, but like the press conference in Canada, there is a little bit of back and forth. There's been a little bit of back and forth online. I know you're not a guy who is online that often, but what do you make of kind of how both Jack and Belal have gone about this? There is a little bit of shit talk here.
I think Jack's just honest in his appraisal. I don't think he's being personal. There's no personal stuff going on. I think Jack just talks about matter of factly about how he sees Belal. He's boring. You know, honestly, my kids were just talking about it when the phone was going there. But my son said to me, "Oh, Mum says every time you watch a Belal Muhammad fight, she finds you asleep on the couch," because I watch his footage at night time. And honestly, I've fell asleep in every one of his fights so far. Maybe that's because I'm tired from the day, but he's definitely helping. So I don't think there's any doubt about that. You know, he's not an exciting fighter, whether you like it or not. He isn't. His style doesn't lean towards that. He's a guy that wants to hold you in a position, consolidate a position, and eke out the rounds. We've seen him have back control with a body lock for 4 minutes and do nothing with it. You know, it's Bilal's boring, but he's good. You know, that's not to be mixed up. You know, don't mix up his ability to win. Remember the late GSP, not late as in pass away, but later in his career, he became a bit boring, if you like, because, you know, the stakes are so high and he just wants to win. So I would expect Belal to be more boring, because he wants to retain that title. And his best way to do that is to blanket people. But yeah, Jack's fighting does the talking. Look how he fights. You know, he's trying to. If you're a good dance partner with Jack, you will make an amazing fight. And even in the fights that, you know, the Basil Hafez fight, that wasn't Jack's best performance by a long shot, but he landed some shots on Basil, and obviously Basil's never looked the same since. Probably a lot due to some chemicals that he might have had in his system the first time around. They do help with things like that. So, you know, it's very straight. It's very interesting. You see someone put out a performance and have a granite chin like that, and then all of a sudden they get knocked out by Oban Elliott. You know, you're like, what's changed here? So, and the Kevin Holland fight, Kevin didn't really engage. Kevin never really got after it, so it was hard for Jack. So, but Jack wants to get in your face and throw bombs at you. And if you allow him to do that, you're in for a good fight and a short night probably.
You say there, if you're a good dance partner for Jack, it's going to be probably either a fight of the night between the two of them, or probably a performance of the night for Jack. Is Belal Muhammad a good dance partner?
I think in the fact that he's not going to go away easy. You know, he's durable, he's tough, and he brings the fight. I think he is a good dance partner. I think he's not going to be running away. That's for sure. He's not going to be fighting on the back foot. So yeah, I think he is. I mean, the only thing that might make him shit is if he does like consolidate a position and just lay there for and try and see out the rounds. But no, I think Belal is a good. I think it'll be a good fight while it lasts. You know, I think Jack will get to show a lot of what people think he can't do, and I think it's a scary prospect for the division when Jack can nullify Belal's wrestling and he has the striking and jiu-jitsu ability that he has. I mean, I think he's the full package, and you know they all skirt around his name a little bit. They poke fun from the outskirts, but no one directly calls out Jack. Very few. Prates did, and Buckley has. But outside of that, they don't really mention his name. And I think there's a reason for that. Everyone would much rather fight. It's a much less dangerous fight physically for your health against Belal than it is against Jack.
You say there, you think it'll be a good fight for as long as it lasts. What is your prediction for the fight?
Jack will stop Belal. I don't know at what point. I guess it depends on the wrestling and the takedown defense. And I see Jack stuffing Belal's takedowns early, and we're going to do damage when we're on the feet. You know, that's we're going to throw combination punches. We're going to hurt him. So if he wants to press forward and walk into that, and he can't get his takedowns, I can see it being over early. If he gets a couple of takedowns, maybe then we need a couple more rounds just to land the volume of damage and start doing that lasting damage and trying to put him away.
I'm very aware that I am an Australian and I'm talking to you, who is Jack Della Madalena's coach. So maybe there is a little bit of bias in this question. But I've felt it, especially with so much discussion around the top end of the welterweight division. Oh, who's this person going to fight before this fight gets announced? Do you think Jack Della Madalena is severely underrated?
I don't know. Like, for me, and I've been saying it for years, like, Jack's the best in the welterweight division. You know, even before he got to the UFC, I thought he'd be here. I didn't know when it was going to be. But yeah, maybe he is a little bit underrated. I mean, he's got 17 fights and 14 finishes. You know, I don't know what else. And 17-fight win streak. I don't know what else you've got to prove. He's beat everybody that's been put in front of him. One of the best grapplers in the UFC. For a Dagestani wrestler grappler, pass that test. You know, Kevin Holland's a middleweight, welterweight hybrid, very difficult fighter. Beat some good guys. You know, hard man to fight, hard style to deal with. Even with the talking, took Jack out of his comfort zone a little bit. But Jack's done everything that's been asked of him. You know, he could have fought Brady instead of Hafez. That's not his fault. You know, Brady had the illness, couldn't make it, and then we had that great palaver with 3 different opponents in 2 weeks and 2 weight cuts, and Jack still goes out there and puts on a performance. He's got to be a fan favorite because he goes out there to finish fights on the feet, standing up, but who cares how people rate him? They can rate him however they want. When he's got the belt, they all need to fight him, and then we'll find out.
What do you think? That you say that he's got that fan-friendly style. He goes out there to finish fights. There was a run there where every fight in the UFC was a finish. What do you think that is? Is that something that you can teach to a person? Like, we talk a lot about styles. We say a lot, people say a lot about Belal's style. Is that something you can teach to a person? Is that something inherent to Jack? What is that?
It's the whole point of fighting. It's the whole point of fighting is to put someone out. For me, a decision isn't a win. We'll take it, but it isn't a win. It's someone's opinion on a fight. Like we will definitely take it. Don't get me wrong. If Jack was to win the world championship by decision, I would have no issue with that. But what we want to do is render people unconscious. That is the objective of a fight. And that is what we want to do as a team. Beautiful violence is our mantra. Like, we want to be technical, but devastatingly violent at all times. And that's what fighting is. It's not. It shouldn't be a sport. You should be in there trying to take your opponent out. That's why it frustrates me when these guys are happy they get to the end, whether they win or lose. Like, that's not the attitude. You want to be destructing your opponent.
I mentioned a little bit earlier when we were kind of bringing up some names, and I brought up Belal's prediction. I said, I'm not sure if you would have seen this. You've said it to me before. By design, you're a man who is a little bit more disconnected from things. You're a man who's a little bit more difficult to get a hold of by design. But you've mentioned Buckley calling out Jack. You've mentioned Ian Garry's comments. How does word of stuff kind of get back to you? Because as I mentioned, I don't think you're a guy who's like scrolling Instagram very often.
No, I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook or anything like TikTok or anything like that. I do look on YouTube sometimes, so the odd video will pop up and I'll watch it. You know, if it's pertinent to Jack or Jack's division, generally I'll look in. And then people send me stuff. Like, if people say things negative or positive about Jack, I often get sent the clips. Sometimes I can't watch them because I don't have any of the platforms. But usually it's on YouTube. YouTube is something I do look at. Just usually off there, or people just will send me clips and stuff, which is kind of annoying because, like, the whole idea of being off social media is to be off social media, not to have people bombard you with what they're seeing on social media. But I do like seeing stuff about Jack. You know, I'm excited for his career, and it's really interesting to me to see what people think. And, you know, the internet never fails to amaze me.
Ian Garry has spoken on his thoughts on the fight. You spoke about Ian Garry a little bit just before. I don't know if you've seen what he's said. I can't remember the exact quote. I'm going to use the term smoke. I think he says he thinks Belal's going to smoke Jack. I think smoke is the quote. It's some word like that. You kind of touched on it. I don't know if you watched his last fight. What do you make of what Ian Garry has said?
Ian Garry talks a lot of bollocks, like he always has. Like, that's his thing. He comes across like he's some undefeated, which he was, I guess, for a little while. But he never fought no one. You know, even through his cage warriors days, he never had any tests in there of high level, of high caliber fighters. And mate, he talks. That's what he does, but he doesn't perform. He doesn't back it up. Like, he was running away for his life in the last minute of that fight. Like, he was lucky to hold on and survive against a guy that really put nothing out for 4 rounds. His last performance, him and Shavkat, like, that fight was unimpressive from a technical standpoint. You know, the level, it showed the levels weren't that high. Definitely the hype between those two undefeated fighters. They've obviously just missed a few people along the way. But no, I'm not that impressed by Ian Garry. I hope he gets the next shot at the title. That's Christmas for us, because he showed that when you put pressure on him, he crumbles. That's what Priors did, even 20 minutes into a fight. So he can say whatever he wants. But, you know, when he's next to Jack and when he's spoken to Jack, he's nothing but nice. He has none of this stuff to say. He tried to get their kids to do a face-off photo once, which was fucking weird. Yeah, he's just a weird dude, man. And he should really concentrate on being better at fighting than speaking.
How I understand for you, it has been the journey with Jack, and so it there has been the logical progression of getting here and climbing the ladder and such. But is there ever a moment where it's like that, where you're like, why is Ian Garry asking my fighters' kids to face off, and you're looking around at the people who are around you, and you're like, it's weird that we're here, and it's weird that all these people are like this.
Yeah, well, we keep ourselves to ourselves, really. We get an Airbnb and we try and stay away from the PI and places like that. Jack attracts a lot of attention from fighters, sometimes negative, sometimes positive. But it's just not something we're into. We don't really like. We just like getting the job done and going home. You know, we're very much homebodies. We're not out here trying to be famous. We're just out here trying to win fights and be world champs. You know. we'll leave the talking and bullshit to the rest of them, because sometimes if you haven't got the substance in the cage, that's what you've got to do to build your career, right? And Ian trying to be Conor, but Conor could fight, and Conor would put people out and do exactly what he said he was going to do. Ian's got a bit to work on to back up his talk at the moment.
You mentioned a bit earlier some of the training that Jack's been doing. Obviously, home base at Scrappy. I've seen Craig's been in, Craig Jones. I believe they've been grappling for a little bit. I think maybe Craig was also involved in Jack's last training camp. How has it been to have Craig in?
Oh, it's great. Craig's a genius, and he spent a lot of time sort of around MMA. So he's worked out how to apply what he knows from jiu-jitsu into MMA, and it's all very unorthodox. It's stuff that a lot of people won't have seen before, which is what we really like about it. Because obviously, it's hard to prepare for things you've never seen before. But no, it's great having Craig around. He is a real helpful figure in Australian MMA. You know, he gets around all the boys. You know, he doesn't speak of money. You know, he's not running around getting the big bucks. You know, he's just a guy that wants to help everybody. He's going to come to Montreal with us. He'll be in Jack's corner. So it's a great relationship. Craig's a great guy, and he you know, his knowledge in jiu-jitsu, especially in an MMA sense, is second to none. So probably only to Gordon Ryan. But you know, Craig's happy with that second place mantra, but we're going for first place next weekend.
I'm sure Craig will love that you said that. um, how did that relationship with Craig start in the MMA space? I think most people associate him with more of the East Coast guys, you know, freestyle and such. He is a guy who, through conversations I've had with other coaches and people that have worked with him, he doesn't have to be doing this. He doesn't have to be in the MMA space. He can just go and do jiu-jitsu, but he chooses to be here. How did the scrappy relationship with Craig Jones start?
Craig was in Perth for a seminar, and he came through and trained a couple of days, and then Jack went over last year to train with Volk, and then Craig was in camp again. So they got some more work in, and then obviously this last camp with Volk, we were over there for a bit. Craig was there, we were doing some work, and then he kindly enough volunteered to fly back from Miami to Perth, which is no mean feat. That's 30 hours on the plane, to come and hang with us for the last couple of weeks, and then he's heading out to Montreal with us. So it's just been organic like that. He enjoys training with Jack. You know, Jack's a good role for him. They're hard for him to find, believe it or not. He is levels above everybody, even some of the great black belts. You know, in the gym, it's just funny watching the levels. You know, and yeah, it's just been quite an organic relationship, but it's great. It's really good for us, and it's good having Craig around. And you know, he's very knowledgeable, very good at putting that knowledge across and breaking people down and studying tape. And we're confident we got some tricks up our sleeve that will allow us to implement our game plan, which is to break Belal's face and ribs.
You talked about that training with Volk. That there was that photo. That room seemed ridiculous. Jack, Volk, some of the guys from CKB, Jamie Malaki was in there, I believe. Obviously, Craig. What was that experience like, and what was being in that room like?
It was amazing for me as a coach. Like, I moved over here from England 12, 13 years ago, and I've been in my own gym. I haven't really had anyone else to learn from, to look at, to take ideas from, to brainstorm with, other coaches to get pointers from. It was really good for me personally as a coach, like working with Frankie Hickman, like brushing up on some wrestling details. Brad Riddell, one of the finest striking coaches in MMA, hearing some of his little gems on stuff. Joe Lopez been around this sport for longer than all of us, you know. And then the Volk himself, you know, he just exudes greatness, and it just sort of comes out of every pore of his body. He's just a really inspirational guy to be around. So from that regard, and the rest of the team, you know, Justin Van Heerden's in there, Colby Thickness. I don't want to like miss anyone out. I know Caleb, Kasib Murdoch was in there, Jamie. There was a bunch of just high level guys. Two guys from Bang Tao, one who just fought on Cage Rose and one on the weekend. Congratulations, Max. So yeah, just some high level guys and just good to hang around. I like being with my people, and fighters are my people, and it was cool just to have a week, just all living together communally, just training hard, just getting after it and enjoying it. The best thing about Aussie MMA is the banter. It's good banter, and that gym in particular is brutal. Joe and Frankie and Craig, they get after it. So it was really good fun, and not to be the butt of the jokes for once, because there was that whole like politeness thing going on. So I'm sure that'll change as the relationship develops. But
When both guys are in camp for the defenses, it'll
yeah,
be a horrific room to be in.
yes, I reckon so.
How did you mention there immigrating over from England? I feel like I've never been to England. I've never been fortunate enough to go, but from what I've seen, the cultures are relatively similar. There is that banter there. How did you find it when you first came over?
Yeah, I've loved it. I'm an Australian citizen now. I'm very proud to be a dual citizen. I'm proud of where I come from, but I'm also very proud to be an honorary Aussie. I think the English people and Australian people are similar that's why there's the rivalry, and no, I love this country. I love Australian people. I love the culture. I love the banter. It's very similar to home, but England's a bit of a shithole and the weather's bad, so it's way better to be here.
Australia is absolutely happy to have you. Um, and talking about you came over, how quickly after moving here did you start up Scrappy?
There's a bit of a story behind how Scrappy came to be, but it was the MMA clinic first, and then in 2019, just pre-COVID, I bought the gym out from the owner of the MMA clinic and turned it into Scrappy. So it's the same gym, it just changed names. Halfway through his tenure, but no, I came over here to do that. So that's what I was flown over here to do in the first place. Touched down and set the gym up and opened it, and we were off and running.
Do you remember the first time you saw Jack Della Madalena?
Yeah, him and his brother came in to do like a free introduction class. We used to do an intro before you joined, just so you had a rough idea of what you're doing when you got into the classes. And this day only the Della brothers turned up, and I used to hate the intros because you got a lot of people that didn't really want to be there. They were free, so you could get all sorts of people, but these boys were into it from the get go. So we had a good time, and yeah, I sort of had an inkling early these two boys were going to be a big part of the team, and if they stuck to it, they would be good. And then a couple of months after that, I just remember watching Jack going, "Fucking hell, this kid's really good already." He's going to be something special. And then a couple of months after that, he had his first fight, and I was like, "Wow, this kid could go all the way."
What is it that makes you say that? What was it that makes you go, he has it?
Um, Not as necessarily just his ability, although he's exceptionally talented martial artist. It's more the mindset. The way he went about his first fight. I remember he was throwing flying knees in his first amateur, which was illegal. But he just had all the gamut of tools straight away, and then just his mindset, his ability to deal with pressure, to cope with the nerves, and to perform. Um, and I see like Jack Della is one of the nicest human beings you'll ever meet, unless the cage door is closed, then it's just you and him in there. And then he is the biggest cunt you will ever come across. And I think that's what makes him a great fighter. He wants to hurt you, he wants to damage you, he wants to put you away. There's no love lost in there with Jack. And I think that's what separates him from everybody else.
As I mentioned earlier, it has been the progression for you. You've been living it. So it's not something that happens overnight. But I remember I saw a clip of you and you were telling a story about you were in the gym with someone watching Jack train and you tapped them on the shoulder and you went, he's going to be world champion one day.
Uh,
To,
I've said
to,
that to many people early.
to now be here on the cusp of it, to be, as you showed me before, packing to leave to go to accomplish the mission. How is it to be here now?
I've got goosebumps with your little sentence there. Like, it's crazy to me. I was a fan watching The Ultimate Fighter in 2005 or whatever it was when Forrest Griffin and Stephen Bonner got after it. And, you know, to go from there 20 years ago to here now, being in their shoes, doing that. Forrest went on to be the UFC champion. Um, it's just mad, mate. It's completely mad. I never thought it would happen. I'm just like, just the boy next door. You know, we all are. We're just, yeah, it's just surreal. But we deserve it. You know, we have dedicated our lives to this. As my wife will probably tell you now, she's screaming at me to take the kids to school. We've dedicated our lives to this, and people who aren't in the sport won't understand what that means. But when you become a fighter, you lose your social life. You know, you lose everything because you have to be completely dedicated to the sport. You're always on the road, especially being from Perth. You know, everywhere's far. There's a lot of traveling to do. You know, we deserve to be here, but it doesn't make it any less surreal. But you know, we're not coming in here to make up the numbers, and we're not just happy to be here. Our goal has never just been to get in to the UFC and get a UFC tracksuit. You know, we've always wanted the gold, and that's what we're coming to do. We have earned this right. I believe Jack makes a statement May 10th and stops Belal in dramatic fashion and becomes UFC welterweight world champion.
Coach, I thank you so much for the time. Last thing for me, I understand you do have to run. I really do appreciate it. We've talked about Jack. He is on that next level up, not just the UFC, but the world championship stage. A gentleman who is now looking to start his UFC run is Jack Becker. He is signed for the road to UFC. What are the feelings of that? It has been much like it's been a long time coming for Jack to get here. It's been a long time coming for Jack Becker to get this opportunity. How do we feel about Jack Becker?
No one deserves it more than him. You know, to snap your leg in half, being on the cusp of a contender series spot all those years ago, and then to have ups and downs on your comeback. And you know, as a team, we've been through quite a lot with Jack. You know, it's been a journey from leg break to where we are now, but the man that Jack has become as a result of that, and how he looks in the gym now is better than he was pre-leg break. So pre-leg break, I thought he could do whatever he wanted in the sport at lightweight, and now he's back to that level again, probably better. I think he's exceeded the level he was before. I'm really excited for him to get his opportunity. He deserves it. You know, he's been through a lot. He's never wavered. He's had some moments. There's been ups and downs, obviously, as you could probably imagine after such a catastrophic injury. But you know, he's never wavered from his goal, and he's a great man. He's an inspiration, and I believe it's going to be very hard to take from him what he believes is rightfully his. And I feel for Jay Hun Park because he's going to get his egg kicked in on the 23rd of May.
Ben, I could sit here and talk to you all day. And one day I will do that, but you have, as we mentioned at the top, the life doesn't stop just because the MMA is going well. Safe travels to Canada. Do you get a chance to hang out, or are you coming straight home afterwards?
I've got to get back to go to China with Jack, so I've got 2 days on the ground in Perth, then I'm off to China. So hopefully, hopefully it's a good month, and the team, Khan Diatta's fighting this weekend as well, and Logan. So, you know, it's a big few weeks, 3 weeks of fights. Boom, boom, boom. Big fights, big pro fights. So, big 3 weeks for the team.
Best of luck to the team. Safe travels. Thank you so much for the time. I look forward to doing this again. I hope we get a chance to.
Cheers, Joel. Thanks, mate. Take care. See you soon.